Hello, my name is Sarah Provost, and I teach music history at UNF. I'm happy to be a part of the UNF Jacksonville SINGS Virtual Week, and I'm going to share some cool information about some music you may not know about. I'm going to tell you about these two incredible and unique choral pieces, both of which incorporate dance. I hope that learning about the history of these pieces will inspire you to learn more about the history of the pieces that you're singing and how that can influence your performances. These two pieces that I'm going to talk about today are examples of sacred jazz. Now, in the 1960s, when these pieces were written, there were these two big inspirational events. The first is the U.S. Civil Rights Movement. This movement inspired musicians of the time, just like the Black Lives Matter movement has inspired musicians today. So jazz musicians began composing these big, beautiful statement pieces about politics and the society of the day. One of those, as an example, is Max Roach's Freedom Now Suite, We Insist. The second big event is quite a bit different, but it is called the Second Vatican Council. This is a meeting of officials in the Catholic Church where they discussed how to modernize the church, which is not very well known for its modernity. If you believe it or not, before the Second Vatican Council, Mass was still celebrated entirely in Latin, just like it had been 1,000 years before. One of the changes they decided upon at the Second Vatican was about music. They decided to allow more popular forms of music within the services. So if you put these two things together, Black musicians putting big pieces together, big political pieces amidst a very difficult time, along with the church that's looking for more modern musical worship, and you get the jazz mass. I have two of these today. Only one is actually a mass. The other is just called Sacred Concert. But the first one is Mary Lou Williams, and she wrote a piece that is known by various names, most often by Mary Lou's Mass. The second piece is Duke Ellington's first sacred concert. He actually has 3 of them. He says it's specifically not a mass. It doesn't have the mass parts like Mary Lou Williams does, but it reflects this combination of sacred music plus this joy of Black dance and Black music. I really hope that someday you'll be lucky enough to perform one of these. Both of these pieces reflect such joy and movement inherent in a lot of sacred jazz. So our first piece is by Mary Lou Williams. She is a jazz pianist, was a jazz pianist, and she is one of the most famous women in all of jazz. Mary Lou Williams had a great performing career. She performed all over the world from the 1930s through the 1950s, but one day she was performing in Paris in the 1950s, and she just walks off the stage. She doesn't actually even return to the stage for 2 more years. She decided at that very moment that she was disgusted by the jazz lifestyle and she needed to find a new path to fulfillment for her. And she wasn't sure that jazz could be a part of that path. While she was on this hiatus, her good friend Charlie Parker died of a drug overdose, which seemed to just underline all of the problems in jazz culture. She resolved never to perform jazz again. However, during this time in the mid-1950s, she discovered the Jesuit faith. And the Jesuit faith is a branch of Catholicism that is devoted to helping the poor. So she gets involved in the Jesuit faith, and these new spiritual leaders that have taken her under their wings convince her that the way that she's meant to contribute to their worship of God is through her music. So when she starts performing again, she composes sacred music, and this church is ready for her. She takes the harmonies of jazz, adds in the sounds of gospel music, and creates several pieces for chorus and soloists, one of which becomes known as Mary Lou's Mass. Now, the dancer Alvin Ailey heard this Mass, and he said, "Please let me choreograph a piece to this." Now, Alvin Ailey was a modern dancer who was devoted specifically to bringing Black dance to the wider public. So this was a perfect opportunity for him. What I have here for you is a more modern clip. So this is not the original performance of Alvin Ailey's dance to Mary Lou's Mass, but it is a modern clip of a modern performance. And what you're going to hear here is the Kyrie eleison, or the Lord have mercy. And you can see how this piece is so intimately tied in with movement. It lends itself very easily to movement. So I have a second piece for you, and this one is by Duke Ellington. He was a 1920s jazz pianist known for this masterful jazz band writing. Ellington called this piece the Sacred Concert, and while it's not actually a mass, it was inspired by one of Mary Lou Williams' sacred pieces, and it even incorporates dancing too. Like Mary Lou's Mass, Ellington's Sacred Concert is a long piece. It's got lots of movements, and they reflect both jazz and gospel styles. It even has a part in it called the Freedom Suite, which is a call out to the ongoing civil rights movement. I'm going to show you a clip of the movement called David Danced Before the Lord, which has a tap dancer in it. And this is, Ellington said this must be a part of this sacred concert, this tap dancer. This is also a soloist who scat sings. There is a full jazz group, and then there is a full chorus as well. See that these pieces really encapsulate the joys of sacred jazz. If you ever get the chance to perform anything like these pieces, remember that joy and let it come out through your singing. Also remember how closely this music is tied to dance. Even if it's not you that's doing the dancing, your voice has to reflect and inspire that movement. You can perform these pieces without dancers, but when you do, it's your performance that has to become the dance. So thank you very much for listening to me talk about these wonderful pieces today. I hope you look them up, I hope you get to know them, and I hope you get to love them as much as I do.